How are we feeling after that one, Miami Dolphins fans? Nothing better than putting up the old the news highlight that says shutout, blank, ground, whatever word you want to put right there against the Jets. When it's 30-0, it's this way, Ben. When it's 30-0 afterwards, I am going to take it. Quite honestly, it's the statement game that this team and this fan base absolutely needed. And no, it's not because of who we played, because it's the Jets. There's a lot better teams in the NFL than the New York Jets, but it's because of the injuries that this team has battled and now overcame. And it's after last week's blown loss, overcoming that, and then simply coming out with all this doubt now in people's heads and handling business the way that we did. Because quite honestly, I start my game day prep, way in advance, but on Sundays, I always want to know, what's that inactive list looking like? What are we looking like in regards to guys that were on the fringe of playing? And this week was huge. It was one of our best offensive players. Not one of, it was our best offensive player with Tyreek Hill. And guess what we got? We didn't get the news that we wanted. That inactive list starts with Tyreek Hill, Jevon Holland, Xavien Howard. Between the inactive list, the guys that are on IR and the guys that are out right now, look it up. Almost half of this team's ideal starters on offense and defense were out for this game. But man, you go from this is going to be a tough one, to man, that mood changes pretty damn quick in this one. Before I go any further, I want to hear from you as well. I'm excited. We're going to do some top takeaways. We're going to give the review. We're going to do the game ball as well, but I want to hear from you as well. What are your top thoughts? What are your top takeaways? Go ahead, drop those in the comments. Who gets your game ball? I want to hear all that good stuff. But like I was saying, we jump out to a 24-0 lead at halftime. And you know what that was fueled by? This team's defense. And we talked about it in this week's preview videos. We had said, you know what we had heard? This defense had one of the best weeks that it had of practice all season. And guess what? They were highly motivated to go out and reprove themselves. And that's exactly what they did, as being one of the better defensive units in the NFL. Because you talk about a defense fueling an offense when you need it. It started early. It was Zach Sealer, it was Christian Wilkins, and it was Bradley Chubb, all doing work on a perfect defensive call by Vic Fangio. We get to Zach Wilson. We force the fumble. Zach Sealer recovers it at the 1-yard line, sets the offense up perfect. Raheem Mostert, it takes 3 carries, but Raheem Mostert got it done. We're going to talk more about the importance of that touchdown here at the end of the video as well. But let me pipe in real quick about McDaniel and the offense there. How about not giving in and not being stubborn to anything creative? It was like run call, run call, run call. I think he heard enough. He said, you know what? We're going to line up in that guy in front of us. We're going to get it done today. And that's exactly what happened. But let's talk about a guy here on that defense that was leading the charge today, and that name is Bradley Chubb. Talk about a bounce back, a needed bounce back after a tough week last week. Kind of a self-inflicted tough week, but a tough week nonetheless. But guess who wasn't missing sacks today? Guess who wasn't missing tackles today? Career high 3 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, a team high 7 tackles, consistently getting pressure in that Jets backfield. That was a beautiful game to witness and see. That is the player that we traded that high draft capital for. That is the player that we gave that big money to. And I'm not going to take credit for this next sentence. One of you out there, let's put it that way, messaged me during this game and said, hey, AFC Defensive Player of the Week, maybe? Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Let's chalk him up for that. The Jets at halftime had -10 net pass yards between Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian. -10. That tells you right there that you're getting to the quarterback. Just 14 rushing yards on 7 carries in the first half alone. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, 4 passes defended, 8 quarterback hits. But to wrap up this point on the defense, on the pass rush, it was the defense that fueled this game, that fueled the offense. And sure, we were effective and fairly efficient on offense. Tua had 3 incompletions today? I think it was 21 of 24. But our first 10 points of this game, you can chalk that up to the defense. We got the ball at the 1-yard line, push it in for a touchdown, and then our field goal came on a 9-play, 22-yard drive. That's not very much offensive production to get some points there, also fueled by the defense. So huge bounce back game. And talk about another bounce back here. Man, we got some questions of this offense in general when we're missing Tyreek Hill. We can say on Sunday, the silence, or how do I want to say this? We silenced it for at least a week. Let's put it that way, because the restored connection between Tua Tagovailoa and Jaylen Waddle was there today. The connection lived. 8 catches, 142 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. But a couple of plays that stood out that really made me feel good about this connection. It brought me kind of back to the Tua and Waddle that we used to know. Obviously, a 60-yard touchdown. That's exactly what we're looking for from a playmaker like Jaylen Waddle. The defense, leading up to that, we talked about the defense already. We kept winning the field position battle. We were stopping them. We're getting great field position. The offense wasn't quite clicking at that point in time. We'd punt. We'd win the field position battle again with the defense. But finally, you need to capitalize on that some point in time. Otherwise, it's going to get flipped on you. Well, we capitalized on a one-play score, 60-yard bomb to Jaylen Waddle. That's what gave us the 17-point lead. But a couple of things about that. Excellent route. Excellent route and drop of that play. I believe it was DJ Reed in coverage. Whether it's Reed, whether it's Gardner, I just want to take advantage of these Jets cornerbacks. You hear way too damn much about them. So excellent route, excellent play. Tua hits him in stride just perfectly. And what do we get? Waddle, baby. Waddle. And the other play that really stood out here, it's the first drive of the second half. We've got a good lead at that point in time, but you know what? We're not taking the foot off the gas quite at that point in time, especially what happened after last week. So we're in a position, we're going for it on a 4th down play. Well, it's a very tight ass window, but man, Waddle gets into that window and Tua threads it just so perfectly to this perfect spot where the window is super tight. Waddle catches it. It puts him in a spot where he's able to spin back around and get nice yards after the catch. So not are we getting the first down, moving the chains, but we're turning that into a big catch and run. The biggest thing these plays showed me was that communication was there. The communication that we all knew was always there. It came back today because the big plays were back as well. And sometimes you just got to do it. It's like a shooter. I've used this analogy before. Sometimes shooters, they just need to see one go in. And that's what we needed from Tua and Jaylen Waddle today. And that's what we got, because you know when this offense is going to hit its stride. Because when we've seen this offense hit its stride, it's pretty damn nasty. But it's when Tua is connecting with Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and the running game is going. We had been missing a little bit of this connection. Man, did we able to get that back today. My next note, I'm just going to wrap everything up in some final game and player notes because I got quite a few of them here. I'll go through them as quick as possible to keep the video at a good length for you guys. But I talked about Raheem Mostert and getting back to this point. 15 carries, 42 yards, modest day in that sense. We didn't need much more than that, but 2 touchdowns. That's now 20 total touchdowns on the season. Who the hell had Raheem Mostert scoring 20 touchdowns this season? Broke Mark Clayton's single season record. Mark Clayton had 18 back. I think it was 84 or 85. I should have looked it back up. Unreal accomplishment, though. And a great thing about this, through 14 games, we've got some time. We've got 3 more regular season games. But especially when you consider how much this offense relies on the passing game and how much success we have with the passing game. At least going into this week, Tua was the NFL's leading passer in regards to yards. But yet we've got the running back that's got the most touchdowns in the entire NFL. So a huge accomplishment. I didn't want to let that one slide by at all. Andrew Van Ginkel, I thought he had a very underrated play today with the downfield pass breakup. Nice to see him when he's able to make plays in coverage. We talk about our linebackers sometimes struggling in coverage of these running backs, of these tight ends. We already know what he can do around the edge. Nice pass breakup, though, today. It was Eli Apple. He's the one that got the nod at boundary cornerback and 3 cornerback sets in replace of Xavien Howard. So on the boundary was Apple and Ramsey. You moved Kohu obviously back into the slot right there. Apple did get picked on a couple of times, but he did also have a nice pass breakup I wanted to note. How about Christian Wilkins? Man, just a menace once again on the defensive line. Added another half sack, added another tackle for a loss. Constant pressures throughout the game. That was kind of the mantra of this. Did a Jets quarterback ever look comfortable today? Whew. Remember how we said Tua didn't look comfortable last week with the offensive line against that Titans defensive front? That's kind of role reverse. That's how Siemian, that's how Wilson felt today. Also on Wilkins, completely blew up that fake punt attempt by the New York Jets. So that was awesome by him as well. How about Cameron Good? How about Cameron Good in this one? Got some snaps today. Emmanuel Ogbah did end up getting dinged up, which led to Cameron Good's first snaps. But he had a nice pressure, forced a throwaway. I thought it should have been an intentional grounding, but good to see Cameron Good there. If there's a negative from the day, and I don't even want to say this it's technically a negative, so we'll call it what it is. Penalties were still a little bit of an issue on Sunday. Austin Jackson had a first down killing play on a holding call. Robbie Chosen offside that wiped out a first and goal, what would have been. Raheem Mostert had a false start on that same drive. All those penalties were killing first downs, and they were killing touchdown opportunities as well, where we ended up having to settle for a field goal in one of those senses. So it didn't hurt us this week, no, but we saw how last week, how settling for field goals can end up killing you. So that's something we got to clean up as well. Austin Jackson, we're going to have to keep an eye on his injury. He did leave the game with an oblique. I have not seen anything yet. I'm recording this shortly after the game on Sunday. But man, now all 5 of our original starters up front have at least missed some time. It was Kendall Lamb who ended up moving to right tackle for Austin Jackson. One of our matchups to watch in the preview video this week was Jets receiver Garrett Wilson versus our defensive backs. Well, for the first time basically all year, we actually saw Jalen Ramsey do some shadowing, and he was shadowing Garrett Wilson occasionally as well. But regardless who was covering Garrett Wilson, he finished with 3 catches for 29 yards. His first reception didn't come until midway through the third quarter, and what a huge response for this secondary after what DeAndre Hopkins did to us last week. And then keep in mind those injuries. That was without Xavien Howard, Jevon, Holland, and DeShon Elliott. So boom, kudos to Jalen Ramsey, kudos to that secondary as well. Speaking of the secondary, as we wrap up here, Brandon Jones, kind of a bit of a forgotten guy sometimes in this secondary, in this safety room with Holland and Elliott being the primary starters. But man, obviously both those guys out today. Brandon Jones makes the most of the opportunities. 5 tackles, and I say just I call it the tackles because safeties and linebackers make a lot of tackles. I get that. His tackles came in nice times, important times, and they were surefire tackles where we had seen him miss some tackles in some previous action earlier this year. Great to see him back to the fundamentals today. But the 2 interceptions, that first one killed a decent-looking drive, Jets drive in the third quarter, one of their best-looking drives of the entire day. Absolutely killed it, picked it off near the goal line. Second interception comes on Trevor, Siemian, desperation, 4th down heave. Regardless, nice to have any game with 2 interceptions. One last note here, Ethan Bonner, he was elevated from the practice squad with Xavien Howard being questionable. He got some run at the end of the game as well, got a pass breakup. Once again, nice to see people doing some cool things when they're given an opportunity. Game ball this week, so many options. There's so many options I feel personally for this week, so I do want to hear from you. Drop your nominees in the comments. I'm gonna go with number 2. I'm gonna go with Bradley Chubb. He fueled this defense that, in my opinion, fueled today's execution just in general. So give me Bradley Chubb. I already went through all of his qualifiers for this one. I think it's well deserved, like we had talked about. AFC Defensive Player of the Week. We'll see how the rest of the games play out. I'm hoping he gets that, man. He needs to have a nice bounce back. This room needs to have a nice bounce back, obviously, after losing Jalen Phillips. So give me Bradley Chubb for that award today. That is what I have got. We'll be back. Obviously, we got a big one coming up here against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm recording this during the Cowboys-Bills game, so I don't know how that one ended yet, but we will know soon enough. But we'll be back covering that with our typical preview videos leading up to that game. That is what I've got. Enjoy this one, Miami Dolphins fans. And until next time, fins up.